Hi everyone, it's Professor Hall. Welcome to week 8 of Women's Memoir. So we are going to be looking at a really different book called Member of the Family by Diane Lake. And I want to say ahead of time that this book is part memoir and part true crime story. There is a lot of sex in the book and some sexual violence as well as regular violence. So if those are things to which you feel you would be sensitive, there is an alternate assignment, and I have a video about that work right after this video in this announcement. So feel free to watch that, and then you can kind of decide what you want to do. I will say that you can choose that alternative assignment at any point in our 3 weeks. So if you start Diane Lake's book this week and you complete this week's assignment, and then you feel like maybe it's too much and you want to switch over to the other alternative book, you can definitely do that week 2 or week 3. As long as you complete an assignment for each week, as well as the reading and all of that, that's fine. And that's up to you. I had a couple questions as to why I chose this book. So for some context, just real quick, Diane Lake was the youngest member of Charles Manson's family or cult, or both really. The Charles Manson's cult known as his family. She did not participate in the violence that was perpetrated by Charles Manson or members of that group. But the reason that I chose the book is because that's kind of just part of her story. Her real story is about how a young 14-year-old going through the 1960s and kind of coming of age during the hippie movement, how she was abused at first and then neglected by her parents, who were also hippies, and kind of forced, again, we talked about parentification, forced to kind of become a parent for her other siblings, and then how she was a vulnerable person and able to be taken in by somebody who was really charismatic and offered her a family that she had been looking for. So what's interesting to me about this story is that unlike some of our other books where it's really just a personal story, Diane Lake's story is a very personal look at pretty well-known larger historical events. She talks about Haight-Ashbury and the Wavy Gravy hog farm, as well as being in this group, and then what she found out they did, and then later on how she was able to escape from the group and that kind of thing. So it also relates to some of our other memoirs. Susanna Kaysen and Ruth Reichel, who we'll be looking at later, grew up during that same time period. So we kind of get a really good sense of the time period and some of the things that were going on in terms of the early women's movement and all of that from these 3 stories, just kind of different perspectives of the same historical period. So it's a really interesting book, and I hope that you do try to read it. But when she describes things like being abused and then later assaulted, she does that in very plain, direct language. Part of that, I think, is her kind of psychologically processing what happened to her, and part of it is almost a little bit emotionally distancing, so that she's using certain terms and certain words and certain images. So that's just an important thing to note. But again, you can decide one way or the other. It's up to you, and it's fine either way, as long as you just let me know which, if you're going to do the alternative assignment. And yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions or concerns, or you'd like to know more, just email me, and I will try to help. Thanks, everyone.